somewhere very cold in a turtleneck. She is a new public member of our committee. Mar Fitzgerald, member of our committee. Renee Kinsella from from Community Board 5. Rich Cacapolo, a member of our committee. Josephine Ishman from Community Board 4. Amy Brenna from our committee. Bob Gormley, our district manager. Tatiana Jurio from Community Board 3. And I'm going to assume who's the 917 number ending in 168? Is that Patricia Laria?
It's not Patricia. Patricia is 0034, the last numbers.
Okay, and we have Patricia Laria, who's the vice chair of our committee. And with that, we have 2 agenda items tonight. I'm going to share my screen. Just give me a second so I can get this going. Let me go. Hold on. Okay. Okay, hold on. Let me go back to that. Sorry about that. I'm going to share my screen. Share. Can everyone see this?
Yes.
Yes.
All right. Okay. We have 2 agenda items tonight. The main one is grading during remote learning. And then our second topic is the Summer Youth Employment Program. So let me just go down. Why is that not going down? Okay, so there we are. So we'll have, we'll do each topic followed by Q&A, and then we'll have our business session, which the public is welcome to stay for, but it only is for our committee. In terms of Q&A, first committee members ask, other CB2 members and other community board representatives, and then the public questions can start with either previously asked questions, or you can submit questions. Go to the bottom of your screen, you'll see Q&A, and type in your question. And Mar will be going through that, and we'll be asking those questions at that point. Not the chat feature, the Q&A feature, okay? Because I know people use both. We also want to share some links. There's some surveys out there. The ECC has a survey on grading policy during remote learning. It's tiny URL NYCRL grading policy, and the DOE survey on remote learning. People can submit this by May 1st. There's a parent one and a student one. The parent one is for all parents or caregivers, and the student one is for grades 6 through 12. It's in 11 languages. You select your school. For people in our community, PS3 is 003, PS41 is 041, PS130 and MS297 or just the full number. It's pretty short, 15 questions for parents, 22 for students. If you have other comments or questions for things that aren't covered on the survey, you can send those to remote-learning-survey@schools.nyc.gov. If everyone who's, I think we have, and we can send this out to you. If you could also put, actually, if people could put in the chat, and we'll do a screenshot of that, just put if you would like to receive a copy of this presentation, just put your email address in the chat and we'll send it to you. Okay, we'll see if that works. Carter, can we capture that? Okay.
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. So let's jump right into grading. Who cares about grading? I think the quick answer is everyone. Students, teachers, parents, principals. People are particularly concerned in grades 4, 7th, and 11th when the performance at school and a number of other measures impacts what schools you can apply to and get into for middle school, high school, and college admissions. I'm going to take you through 3 student profiles. These were just ones that we made up. Student A, middle class family, has a computer, has a regular Wi-Fi access, no disability or language barriers. Parents are healthy. No one has COVID. They haven't lost their job. They're working from home, and they're able to help with remote learning. Student B, similar middle class family, but the child has an IEP, no language barriers. Maybe they have ADHD, or maybe they're struggling to read, or some other kind of disability. One of their parents has lost their job. Maybe the other one is sick with COVID. And there's very few parent resources to help them with remote learning. So when they're trying to download apps or look at videos and they can't access them, they're kind of on their own. And then we have student C. They're living in poverty. That's 70% of New York City students. They don't have an appropriate digital device. I'll say that I have, if I'm accessing Google Classroom from a phone, I can't click on some of the links because there's too many attachments. It's hard, and you're certainly not going to write an essay very easily using a phone. Or maybe there's no Wi-Fi access. There's no disability, but there's some language barriers. The child is learning English and the parents do not speak English. There's also several siblings, and the seventh graders helping to take care of their younger siblings, and there's no parental guidance. Their parents are essential workers, or they're sick, or there's language barriers, or several other. These is just sort of a simple student profile. I want to share. Whoops, it's out of order. Go back. What student profile is most common? I think it's safe to say that all families are struggling with remote learning. I haven't heard a single person say it's easy or great, but some families have access to more resources. In New York City, 73% of students live in poverty. That's 819,000 students. 300,000, or about 27%, lacked access to Wi-Fi or technology when we started remote learning. 20% are students with disabilities. Those are diagnosed disabilities with students with IEPs. 13% are English language learners, and 12% live in temporary housing. And included on this slide, the numbers for the 3 elementary schools and 1 middle school in Community Board 2, as well as the District 2 averages. District 2 has about 29,000 students in K through 8 schools, but there's also a ton of high schools, and so students sort of enter into District 2 to go to high school. So the high school numbers, frankly, skew much poorer than the District 2 numbers, so I'd like to break those out. And we have Manhattan and New York City. I want to point out, even at schools that are relatively, wealthy populations, there's nearly 50 kids at PS 41 who are living in poverty. At PS 130, it's 385 students. English language learners, we have 137 at PS 130. And these are pretty big numbers when you just look at the raw numbers as well as the percentages. And then what are the grading options? There's obviously a ton of grading options. We just sort of included a spectrum here, and we took a look at 4 different options and how that impacts student A. That's a student who kind of has, good technology, strong economic situation, and student C, who's on the other end of the spectrum. And then we also looked at the year-end grading emphasis. It's my understanding that, several schools downtown tend to do, and especially in elementary school, grade students harder at the beginning of the year with the goal of showing progress by the end of the year. So where the student's grade is in the first grading period or the second grading period may not really be where they often end up. And I'm going to let Mar talk to that a little bit when we get to that column, because she has a child at PS 41 where that's sort of one of the approaches. So no change. Your grade is your average for the year. Obviously, advantages to student A, who has a stable home and can transition to remote learning. Student C, who's already at a disadvantage and has significant disadvantages with remote learning, will struggle with this. For students with a year-end grading emphasis, it's good if you have a strong remote learning environment. It may not be good if you don't have a strong remote learning environment. Another approach is for different ways of doing it. You drop the lowest grade, or your grades can only rise. So let's say you have a B on March 13th, and you, for some reason, love remote learning, or your mom does all your homework for you, and you get an A in the last 3 months of the school year, then that will be factored in. You would average that in. But if you're, the wheels come off the bus, or nobody's supervising you, and you're really struggling, that would not impact your grade. our view is this would have obviously advantaged student A, who's got a strong remote learning environment. Student C, may still struggle. And again, for a school that has a year-end grading emphasis, it all depends on the remote learning environment. The other two options, and there's lots of options out there. Chalkbeat did an article what different places, some places are giving all A's to everyone. One option is just a pass-fail for the remote learning period. So your final grade is what it would have been if school ended March 13th. And there's really no advantage to any particular student group with that. Or disadvantage, and there's no advantage. And then there's pass-fail for the year. And that's sort of another option. This takes the pressure off, but if you had an A going into March 13th, you might not like that as much. Mar, do you want to sort of talk about what the third column a little bit?
Hi. Yeah, well, as you know, my daughter's at PS41, and PS41 is one of those schools that we believe, I'm sure they wouldn't say, intentionally grades low, especially for fourth grade, which is an admissions year for middle school, at the beginning of the year to show progress, since the final marking period is the only one that really counts for middle school admissions. So here we are in this situation where we've now had to, these first two report cards are lower than maybe they should have been. I've spoken to lots of families and lots of parents where normally high achieving students have graded lower in these first two periods than they normally would, but nobody really worried about it because the expectation was they would do really, really well in the last marking periods. But, here we are now. And so that begs the question, how can we grade going forward in a fair way to these kids?
Okay.
That's all.
Okay, no, thank you. Sorry, I'm getting, so let's just, I'm just gonna, move to, sorry. I'm gonna just go to Q&A. I'm going to open it up to our committee members, and then if you could raise your hand, and then since I can't see that, Mar will call on you, or you can use your raise your hand feature, or you can just literally raise your hand, or I can just call each person's name out. Oh, we have. Anyone want to jump in with any questions? Okay. Let's go to, sorry, here. I'm on here twice. Mar, do you want to start going through the questions?
I don't, oh, here they are. Sorry, I didn't say.
I'm going to stop the share for now. We'll come back to that.
Hector Vasquez, he asks, workloads are too much for middle school in order to compensate for in-class work. What can we do? Also, why are our seniors left with little to no support just because they're graduating? School safety needs to be addressed during meal pickups.
Got it. Okay. And I'm going to also, Stella Chang, you're on here. We have a lot of 75 Morton parents on here as well. I'd love to hear you guys chime in terms of, and Maud, you have two kids at Salk. People want to chime in about the level of work at the middle school level. Okay.
Hi, yeah, sure. I don't know, on my computer, Janine, hi all, sorry, I'm joining the call a little late. This is Maud.
I just renamed you.
Oh, you renamed me, okay. I was wondering why my name was wrong.
You probably used my link.
I probably did, because I was searching around for the link, which is part of why I was a little late to the call. Yeah, it's certainly different than for my 6th and 8th grader. But they both do have work. They have access to their teachers that they don't, you know, have great need of, but they have regular communications by email from their teachers. The actual continuation of their workload does appear to be pretty solid at this point. I mean, I think I would say it's fair that they're doing less work than they do normally, but the actual the full range of classes is still going on, the all of the materials being covered, and the same is actually true of my 4th grader. But you know, we don't have digital divide issues. We don't have issues with access to devices or Wi-Fi or any of the things that some families have. But all of that being considered, the workload is actually has been pretty consistent.
Okay, great. Trisha Joyce, the chair of the Schools and Ed Committee from Community Board 1 has joined us. Trisha, I think I've unmuted you, so I think you can talk.
I can. Can you see me?
I see your box. I don't see a picture.
I guess I don't have a photo. Sorry. Hi, everybody. Thanks for inviting me. I love the presentation. I don't know whether anybody from my committee has joined. I haven't seen anybody text me. I asked them to. But I wanted to just report that, you know, the overall feedback down here is very similar to what you and I talked about, Janine, where the kids, especially with learning disabilities, are really struggling, ADHD and dyslexia being at the top of that list. Having this copious amounts of text be the way that their lessons are, you know, given to them is obviously really challenging. We've seen grade performance drop alarmingly in that area. Kids who don't have learning disabilities are also seeing a drop in grades. When I talked to everybody about what they, you know, really felt in terms of what was fair, what came up a lot was was their desire for it to be consistent across the city. You know, they felt that, and I would have to agree with this, is having someone give the kids all A's and then another school do pass fail for the year. I think, you know, there was a lot of anxiety around the possibility of that, especially given, you know, when it comes to applying to middle school and high school, like how would that ever be resolved, and what criteria would be used, things like that. It just brought up a whole bunch of other questions. So other than that, that's pretty much all I really had to share in terms of us. And I think what we'd like to do, as we shared with you, Janine, is really come together on this one across community boards so that we can have a common voice and support any resolutions you do with, you know, ones that we would then do, so as to have, you know, a good impact.
I have another question. Yeah. Anne Rice-Diafe asks, grading. My assumption was there would be guidance from the DOE so that all schools would be taking the same approach. Is this not true? You're muted, Janine.
My husband was making a lot of noise. He's zooming 13 feet away from me. I think regardless of where our committee comes out, and what we've been hearing loud and clear from parents and from the comments that people sent in, is that they want the DOE to have a policy. And right now it's sort of a soft policy, like let everybody do what they want. But it's my understanding that the DOE is, you know, considering coming out with a policy, so we should be weighing in on it, which is why we've decided to put this meeting together on about a week's notice, so we could weigh in on that. But I think that's what we're hearing from parents, is they want to hear from the city and they want some clarity. Hector, I don't know if you want to be unmuted, Hector, and add anything to your comments. Sorry. Let's see. No. Okay. And I'm just going to go to some of the questions that we got. Sorry.
Yeah, hello.
Oh, Hector, great. Go ahead, Hector.
Hi, thank you for having me, everybody. Appreciate it. Very nice presentation you have there. Very informative. Just to elaborate, I know you touched on I'm a member of Community Board 4 and also on the LHLC Tennis Association. So we have two schools in particular up here, PS33 and PS11. PS11 was designated as the school meals location distribution center for our area for the past month or so. We've had increased security problems where we've had adults accosting children and some of the parents at the PS11 location. I myself had an issue several weeks ago with one gentleman, and the school safety officers were involved. But basically, it came to the point where the gentleman thought there wasn't enough food left, that my kids had taken the last two meals, and he got annoyed and he cursed out my son, who's in high school, and my daughter was there, and it turned into this whole big thing. It was ridiculous. But anyway, the school safety officers finally came out and they did handle it. It took a while. But basically, even today, another incident happened where another gentleman decided he wanted to have his meal on the steps of the school while everybody else was trying to go in and get their meals, which is not safe at this point, as we all know. So, the school safety officer, again, did what he was supposed to do. He asked the gentleman to leave, and it turned into this whole drama, and the gentleman got, the safety officer got cursed out, and it almost looked like it was going to turn into a fight. But the school safety officer was able to diffuse it, thankfully. This is an increasing issue, especially for this area here, because we do have a lot of a large homeless population. And as the weeks go by, to make it quick, long story short, it seems to be getting aggravated more and more. Today, I saw a line going halfway down the block from PS11, which is unheard of. So I don't understand why in the past couple of weeks there hasn't been that much draw to it, but now all of a sudden there's an uptick and a lot of adults showing up. And this was about 11 o'clock in the morning. So I really think that the security needs to be addressed at these locations because there's going to be increased issues as the weeks go by, because it doesn't seem to be getting any better, unfortunately.
Hector, I will, we've not had community, PS 130 and Community Board 3 is now serving over 5,000 meals a day. So, and initially they were having some problems, reallocating the supply there. I have the email address for a couple people there who've been extremely responsive. So let me coordinate with Josephine and connect you to them because they've been, every time we've had a problem, they've fixed it within 24 hours, which I really appreciate.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
Hector, I'll also reach out. This is Josephine from Community Board 4.
Hi, Josephine.
And thank you so much for all of those details. And I'm really sorry to hear about that. I will also connect you with the people who are running this program, and they're the ones who I've been talking to about. I know how you had wanted the site of PS33, and they said that they weren't able to do that because the kitchen's in the basement. So that's why everything is located at PS11, but I can definitely understand these are major challenges and they have to get on top of this. So tonight I'll write them an email about this and I'll copy you on it, and we'll just take it from there and see what happens. But we can certainly ask them to provide extra security. There are separate times for pickup for students. I believe the times are from, is it 7 to 11? And then I think from 11 to 1, it's parents. I have to get that clarified.
It's 7:30 to 11:30 for families with children, and 11:30 to 1:30 for adults who don't have children. But it may just be an adult showing up in the morning, because you can pick up, a parent could pick up for their entire family and they only need to send one person.
Right. So Hector, you're basically saying this is going on at whatever time you're there.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, I can understand, because in the beginning there wasn't that much draw to it.
Right.
But now apparently it seems to have blown up, and it could create it's a powder keg ready to happen, unfortunately. I think before something bad really happens, we need to address it. So,
Okay, we'll work on that tonight.
thank you.
Sure.
Not to take up too much more of your time. I did have two more comments. Just, my son is in high school. He's in senior year. He's about to go to college. And I've spoken to him at length, and it seems like the workload obviously is increased because of the lack of in-class work. And I do understand that, which also relates to my daughter's situation as well. But make a long story short, my daughter has a little bit more support, whereas apparently it seems to be the high schoolers, and I've spoken to other parents as well. Apparently the high schoolers are kind of left out in the lurch, where basically they're expected to complete the full workload without the support that's really needed. Whereas the middle schoolers seem to have a lot of support, which I'm very grateful for. But it almost seems to me like okay, well, they're about to graduate anyway, and you're supposed to skate in your senior year, as some of us kind of did in our heyday. But unfortunately, this is a rare situation here, and to expect these kids to take this workload on with the proper support from their schools to complete the work properly is kind of setting them up to fail, okay, so to speak. And, and honestly, on the second question, which was going toward my daughter in the middle school, it seems like the workload is really, really increased to the point where they're up at 11, 12 o'clock at night. And I'm kind of surprised to see that, but I do understand they do have to make up for the classwork that they're missing out on. And it's not for lack of trying. It's not for lack of playing, I check her out. She's not playing video games or anything like that. She's doing her work, pretty much. And I'm just kind of surprised that, I don't know, some sort of balance has to be met somewhere along the way, with all this.
Oh, you were meant to do that. Then go up and give it to her when she's ready.
Okay.
Emily? Oh, she just muted herself.
Okay.
Emily, I see your question in the Q&A. Would you like to actually read it?
Sure. Thanks, Mar. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Oh, great. No, I was just, my name is Emily Hellstrom, and I'm on the CEC for District 2, and I chair the Students with Disabilities Committee. And I also have kids in elementary school, one in middle school, and PECSLIP, my child's elementary school, has had a lot of sort of grade band meetings, school-wide meetings. Definitely been hearing from the principals, teachers, and even at one of our CEC meetings, Donalda Chumney, the superintendent of District 2, said it's very difficult to assess students from afar. That is something they've definitely not tackled. Certainly at the elementary school level. I know it gets a little bit easier as you go higher up into grades. I'm also sort of deeply concerned about stress in general. Students, parents, teachers, there's a lot going on. Families with students with disabilities are struggling. I've heard from many. And I am going to be definitely, hearing even more and more from these families that just they're falling further and further behind. So much of the content has to be accessed by reading and paying attention, and of course, like Tricia mentioned, that is deeply difficult for somebody who is either dyslexic or has ADHD or both. And then there's actually the actual health of parents, like Janine mentioned in her presentation. And I just, I'm deeply concerned about how we can grade children under these circumstances. There are diagnostic tests to see, like, where are children? How are they, how are they taking on this information? And then there's a different type of thing of trying to let students get into schools. And I think we ought to separate those two and focus on making sure that we know where kids are, how much they're learning, how much is going in. I think that is very important. And I think we can start to do that in September, when hopefully, God willing, we are back. And we need to just leave this screen thing for now, just aside. I think they're just two separate issues. And so I'm wondering, when we're grading, I think it's important to remember, what we're actually looking at the grades for.
We received a number of questions and parents are looking for clarity on this. Is like, what about my kids in 4th grade? My kids in 7th grade, they're applying to middle school next year and high school. Parents also want clarity on that. And I think that's a message that we can send to the DOE, and hopefully Maud and Emily, you can take that back to the CEC, because I mean, that's one of the main questions we're hearing about from parents. I'm just looking through, we got a bunch of questions, people who registered and sent questions. And right now schools are, putting in place their own grading policies. And so Stella, I'm gonna have you correct me if I'm wrong. How's that? I know you don't like to, but 75 Morton basically dropped the lowest grading category. So you can't fail. I guess you could get a very low grade, but you can't fail. Stella, do you want to add anything to that? I've unmuted you in the event you do, but if you don't, that's okay too.
No, that's correct. And then they also switched to an A/B schedule to, the question that Emily had raised, where are the kids and what are they learning? So they're providing an A/B schedule. So only certain subjects are on A days. It's ELA and I believe it's social studies and Spanish is an A day. On B days is math, science, and arts and PE. So that gives the teachers more time on their off days to actually look at children's work and provide them with better and more detailed feedback. So that hopefully helps the school and the teacher figure out exactly where their students are in terms of their learning. And Janine is correct. They got rid of the lowest grade in their mastery-based grading system. So you can't fail. You can't get a grade lower than a 70 for this part of remote learning.
Janine, I can address a little bit, if you like, from what the CEC heard from the DOE in terms of grading policy.
Sure.
And parent input. We get updates from, and for those who don't know, I'm also on the CEC. I'm the president of CEC2. And our communications with the DOE, sorry for the background noise, it's part of life these days. Our update from the DOE is that they are looking for input from the CECs, and while they want that input from the CECs, they're also looking to make a recommendation that's a universal recommendation in terms of grading policy in the near future. There may be some flexibility within what they issue, but some folks have suggested a pass-fail solution. Some folks have suggested a no-harm solution. Some folks have suggested keeping things the same. That overarching recommendation, I think, is what we're going to hear from the DOE, but there may be room for specific school adjustments to that. But what I understand from them is that they are going to be issuing guidelines and recommendations to schools in the fairly near future. So for parents looking for that, and I suspect that those recommendations will also address some of the particular concerns with regard to 4th and 7th grade families in particular, who want to know how that will affect any application process for their students next year.
Okay, great. I am going to turn it over to Robin Broshi, who asked to talk. She's also on the CEC. Robin, are you there?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. So I just was going to share some preliminary results from the ECC survey that we've been just trying to spread through word of mouth to parents all around the city. So far, there are about almost 12,000 responses that came in. and that people can fill it out multiple times if they have a different position for different student, like, you know, if they had kids in different grades and they want to communicate like different ideas for different grade levels. So that's a fuzzy, you know, the number's not perfect, but it certainly shows that even if it was half that number, there's a lot of parents providing feedback to the DOE about what the policy should be. And just the like very broad brush is that a large majority want a citywide direction. So there's sort of agreement that while usually schools have a lot of independence and flexibility in how they approach grading, that in these unusual circumstances, that there really should be some sort of citywide guidance. And the other, I think, big takeaway is that there is consensus around having, we can't just do business as usual with grading, that there has to be a mechanism to take into account these circumstances. So the survey itself provided a lot of different options. And one of the options was keep things as usual. And there were, you know, there was clearly, that was not by any stretch the most popular option. It was not, most parents did not choose that. So the DOE is definitely going to be getting a message that parents want some guidance and that they have to come up with a plan that takes into account the moment that we're in.
Okay, thank you. I also see, I just want to say Kelly Shannon is on, the principal at PS 41. Welcome, Kelly. Raise your hand if you want to say something. I don't want to put you on the spot. But we're going to go to Anna Rice-Yaffe, who had a question. Anna, I'm going to allow you to talk. You're on live. Anna?
Oh, hi. I already actually, mine was on the mine was on the Q&A. Mine was just about that I expected that the DOE would be issuing some sort of advice about how the grading is going to work. I can tell you that what I've heard from most teachers and from both of my kids' school is that it should be pass-fail.
Got it. And where do your children go to school?
My son is at Eastside Community High School in the East Village, and my daughter's at Hunter.
Got it.
So she's not DOE, but
they've both gone to pass-fail.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's good to know. Okay, I'm going to mute you. Do we have any more questions, or does anyone else want to talk? You can, let's see, move this down.
Well, if I may, Janine, I just want to add a couple of things that have been going on in my district, in District 4, Community Board 4. So as many people know, in Midtown Manhattan, our schools probably have the highest rates of students in temporary housing due to the hotels here. And as of now, our students are clearly not getting the support that they need. They do have the iPads, they have the internet connection, but there's just no academic support there at all. And, you know, it's very hard for a student who is in a hotel room sharing with multiple family members, and there's nowhere to actually go a quiet space to do work. So these are students that are already behind because they've been moving from place to place, and now so they find themselves in these extraordinary circumstances. And one of the issues that we have is that the students tend to be clustered at certain schools. So to have business as usual in terms of grades, that really affects these schools a lot. So unless, you know, the DOE is going to give these kids some extra support, and you know, as of right now, you know, their hands are just tied. There's no real extra support that they can give them. And we're not even getting any answer on what's going to happen in terms of summer school, if there's going to be any summer remote learning and opportunity for these kids to get caught up. There's just no answers at all. So I'm hoping that there will be some sort of system-wide guidance in terms of gradings, because it could do a lot of harm to these schools and these kids.
Okay. Thank you, Josephine. I also think we should share this with the committee members, but I believe PS3 in conjunction with Clinton and Salk are have the wish list that they're doing through Amazon for parents who can help some of these families. Probably just a small bit, but I think that's a good start. Tom, let me get you here. Tom Forbes, let me unmute you. You can go ahead and talk. Are you there?
Yeah, hi, can you hear me?
Is this Tom?
Yes, hi.
Okay, hi.
This is Thomasina. How are you?
Oh,
I'm
sorry.
That's okay. I'm one of the co-presidents at Salk. So my question is, you know, we have very involved parents, and why we haven't seen the ECC survey until today. And actually, I only found out about it by word of mouth. I would love to send this to our community, and I'm sure other schools would too. And do you think we can get this survey out to parent coordinators so you have a bigger voice in terms of getting sampling of what parents need, parents want? As well as, you know, if 7th grade, let's just say if we do pass-fail 7th grade, can we look at 6th grade? I mean, is this something that DOE can like not hung up on just looking at 4th and 7th grade grades? We can roll back a year.
I think that's a great, I mean, I did not put this survey together, but I've sent it out to the CB2 schools, but I mean, we
Right,
can, yeah, I mean, it should go out to everyone, but I don't know what the protocol is. I sent it to my child's school and asked if they could send it out, but I haven't.
It just, sorry, I don't mean to interrupt. It just seems like, you know, the DOE claim that they want parents' input, but like I'm getting little bits and pieces of survey from different organizations trying to get parents' input. Meanwhile, you know, look at the DOE remote learning survey. It has nothing about grading. So if they truly care about parents' input, like get it out there and let people have a voice. Just saying.
I agree. So I'm hopeful that you can get it spread through your child's school. Do you have children at any other schools or just one?
I have a 9th grader, but she left the DOE system.
Got it. Okay.
Let's just say.
Okay.
Yeah, if you share your email address with us, we can try to get the ECC to share those results with you.
That would be great. I mean, I can share with my community, but I mean, I would love to send it. I mean, I know this is a CB2 meeting, and I'm happy to share this with the survey at the President Council at the CC President Council meeting, which is in the beginning of the month. But it should go to all parents, like 5 bureau. If we're looking for, if the DOE is looking for input,
yeah.
Is there a way to do that? Can we do it through parents coordinator so every school can get it?
Each school would have to, I think, make its own decision to send it.
Right. I completely agree. But this is today, like literally 30 minutes ago. It's the first time I ever seen it.
Well, I'm glad you're on this call. So thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I only took it yesterday. Okay, so we got that message loud and clear.
Thank you.
Robin, hopefully you can help spread that message. I'm going to go to Jocelyn Anchor and then to Emily Hellstrom, who raised her hand again. Jocelyn, you're unmuted.
Oh, hi, everyone. I have a daughter at Salk, like Tom, so I can also send her the link. But I actually wanted to follow up, and pardon me, I think her name is Josephine, right? From CB4?
Yes.
Yes. So I've actually been the one leading the effort on putting together a lot of these wish lists for the students in temporary housing. At least I'm doing the one for PS3, Clinton, and Salk, and I'm about to prepare some for some other schools that are going to jump on board as well. And I'm wondering, do you think there are any kind of, I mean, we're obviously not teachers and we're not academics, but are there any kind of learning materials or things that you think could be added to those wish lists that would be helpful, or maybe headphones to help with some of the noise barriers. I mean, I feel like there's so little that we can do, but maybe there's something here that we can add.
Yeah, thank you so much for that question, Jocelyn, and all that you're doing. The headphones actually might be a really good idea.
Yeah, that's a great suggestion.
Yes, yes, it really is. So I'm working with one of the students and temporary housing coordinators at one of our schools. So I will ask her if that's a good idea and definitely get back to you on that. I think the biggest issue that we're seeing though is that they just need the extra academic support. You know, I mean, they get the assignments like everybody else gets the assignments, but they really need that academic support and the social emotional support. And this is just very hard to do right now. But I love the idea headphones. So let's work on that together. Thanks so much.
Great, thank you.
Great, thank you. Emily Hellstrom, you had another question? Let me unmute you. Oops.
Sorry, yeah, no, it was just actually a comment on the pass-fail part of things, because I think, you know, there is pass-fail in your really amazing presentation. There was pass-fail that had, you know, for just the second half of, you know, since March 13th or whenever it was that we closed down. And then there's like pass-fail all over. But I think it really speaks to what Mara was talking about, where school's great in so many different ways. Like I know my child, the way that we grade is that halfway through the year, when we get that marking period, those grades back in, I think, February or March, those are basically it's where they are as compared to where they should be at the end of June. So their grades like are not reflective of where they are right now. So you would have an approaching with the idea that by June you would have a meet, you know, or, you know, 3 to 4 or 4 to, you know, there's movement. And I think that's where it gets really difficult with pass fail, not just going pass fail for the year, because some schools do it one way, some schools do it the other. How would you know? Anyway, I just think that it's very difficult, and I think the most important thing that our teachers should, and principals and superintendents and all of us should be concerned about is where are we and where do we need to get to. That's the most important. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Robert McGrath, let's see, are you unmuted? Robert, you should be able to talk now.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
I have 2 questions, and I think one of it is still related to the ambiguity around how we're approaching grading for this last trimester. And then since middle school admissions, high school admissions are also kind of a checkerboard system right now, where each school has their own rubrics in the traditional admissions practices that have evolved over time. If we adopt a pass-fail type of a grading standard for the last trimester of this year, what is the knock-on effect the DOE is thinking about as middle schools and high schools are looking at the rubrics for managing supply and demand for allocating seats to the best schools? I mean, that's what most of the families are concerned about within this district, is how do we prepare our students, our kids, for moving forward in the best possible light.
I wish I had an answer for that, but I think that's an important comment. I wish I had the magic wand, but I think that's an important comment for our committee to take into account and share.
Yeah, because I haven't taken the survey yet, and we will. Thank you for sharing the link. But it's going to be important that we look at this as a full ecosystem, if you will. It's not just how are we managing grading for a specific trimester. My second question, which I didn't hit the send on, but while I've got the
Get the mic.
capability and the mic, is, you know, there is a lot of media hype out there that we could be into another wave of a coronavirus in the fall. So hopefully the DOE is thinking about setting strategy, policy, and guidelines, anticipating that distance learning could become the new normal for the next 1 to 2 years. Not that we wouldn't have school resume for pockets of time, but we need a mindset coming from the DOE leadership that this is not a once and done type of exercise. We need to think about policies and practices for how we support our students, the teachers, and the administrators in a proactive way, and thinking about optimistic and worst case type of scenarios. And everyone's got a different view as to how this may play out. We don't have a crystal ball, but compared to other non-New York City DOE districts, there were other school programs that were much better positioned for this pandemic than we have been. So we need to really up the bar as we think about the fall in terms of grading, and also around how we think about admissions practices moving forward. Those are kind of my comments as we're thinking about incorporating feedback back to the DOE at large for this district.
Thank you. I would add to your list grades, admissions, and learning, because that's the most important thing that's possibly not really happening as well as it could be. I mean, the DOE turned on a dime. They had about a week to make this happen. I think the teachers are doing the best that they can given what they have. But I think it's safe to say that no one internally within the DOE, or maybe there was one person somewhere, I don't think that there wasn't a plan of, you know, a contingency plan, even a 2-month-old one, as far as I can tell. But I was on a call earlier this week with Christina Foti, who is the new Chief Academic Officer. And she has a long title, but she's essentially in charge of special education for the DOE. And it was a good call, but it was the message, I think, was we're working on things. It wasn't like we got this. I mean, that was my read on it. But the key message was we're committed to figuring this out. And so, you know, they're scrambling, but there's going to be 2 or 3 months over the summer. There's going to have to be a lot more scrambling. I think preparing for some more worst case scenarios for next school year.
Yeah, and that's where that relative benchmark of other school communities outside of New York City shows that other districts were better prepared than what the chancellor has led in terms of the first round response. So we should have something that's much more concrete and tangible if we have to implement a different playbook for the fall.
Okay, great. And Robert, where do your children go to school?
PS 41.
Okay, great. Thank you for participating. I see some more hands raised. Trisha, Joyce?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I had raised my hand right before Robert started talking. He covered a lot of the same points I hoped to raise, I think. You know, I think when the surveys come out and the DOE asks us how we feel, I think we hear overwhelmingly here, why not live classroom? You know, my daughter, I have one in a school for, you know, Mary McDowell. And obviously it's a smaller school and they have a much smaller class size and it's a different situation. So it's not apples to apples, but to Robert's point where, you know, seeking out best practices with the resources available. I was concerned at a couple of the town halls I attended that the DOE seemed happy with how things were going. And the feedback I'm getting down here is, you know, 100% unhappy. So there seems to be a disconnect a little bit between, not a little bit, a lot, between the overall perception from the DOE side about how this is going. And it's hard for parents because what they say is, we know that this is a difficult situation. We know we're calling upon our teachers to do something impossible. We feel for them. We know how difficult, you know, and I think we all feel that way. It's really hard to expect perfection when they had so little time. But I also think it's going to be important to reach out to them and start talking about, who are they looking to for developing best practices? Are they, you know, spending some time looking at these areas that are having more success with how this is going, are getting better parent feedback? You know, what more can we do given the resources we have? You know, what is the answer you say to the parents of why there can't be more live teaching, at least videos of the class being delivered, given what we know about kids' response to that and how that engagement, especially for kids with learning disabilities, has been shown to improve their learning. To your point, Janine, I'm not just concerned about the competitive situation we have with some schools going pass fail, some going all A's, some going best last grade. I would think that it's important not only on a city level, but on a national level to be, you know, trying to level the playing field and reaching out to other successful models that they can find. And, you know, how do we as community boards, you know, support, you know, work together to bring this to them? Because I'm really concerned. It's not like, you know, we can't manage past this one semester, one trimester, whatever. But I don't think we're just looking at this. We could very well be looking at the fall. And, you know, this could end up being a problem if the loss of learning is extended.
Absolutely. Thank you, Tricia. Let's see, do we have, Hector, did you want to, let me unmute you. Hector, did you want to say something?
Yeah, yes, I do. Referring to Robert McGraw, I believe, his comment on what strategies we need to embrace or come up with in the coming months when our children are hopefully going to be returning to school. I mean, we need to look outside the box and possibly look at ideas, possibly like maybe alternating between, you know, once the schools are cleared and sanitized and everything's, you know, we get the all clear and everything. How do we integrate the kids back into the schools themselves? I mean, possibly we might look at alternating between online learning on certain days and maybe the kids going into the school on the following day, to maybe supplement that work somehow to make up for the lack of in-class education that they're missing out on, as a way to do that. I mean, at least in the beginning, until we get a better handle on things. I mean, we all need to come together and come up with some kind of strategies ahead of time, because this is going to creep up on us. And yeah, at the detriment of our children's education, unfortunately, yeah, they're going to fall way behind the curve when it comes to their progress. So we definitely need, and I appreciate the ideas that are being brought up here, but we also need to look at the international stage and see how other countries are dealing with, like Sweden and Germany, and see what they're doing at this point or what their plans are. So not just in the US.
Okay. Well, thank you, Hector. Those are very good points. I see, Jocelyn, do you want to say something?
Oh, well, I hadn't raised my hand, but I will say one thing to someone actually just texted me an idea too, which is to Josephine again. Do you think it would be worth trying to reach out to some of the some rework spaces? And of course they need good PR, but maybe they could try to set up some type of study halls or rooms or something, a place that we could find for some of these students to go. I know supervision would be a real challenge, but is it worth even putting any energy into that?
I mean, if the DOE is involved, like there's so much to be said with legal. Like they don't, we've had some groups that have reached out and tried to do some work in the shelters, but unless there's actually a teacher, a licensed DOE
Right.
teacher in the room, they don't even want to touch it. So
Yeah.
that would be a hard thing to do, but it's something that, you know, we can look at.
I mean, I suppose like if everyone's saying if this continues on in perpetuity or at least what even longer, which I suspect it will,
Yes.
to have. And the only other thing I wanted to say is I wanted to second what Emily said, which is I think it would be good if we could decouple what's going to happen with grading this year from how it affects admissions. And I know it's very hard to do that. I would also encourage people to remember that this is a particular problem for District 2. It's not a citywide or even, you know, citywide problem. And I think when I first thought about the idea after my daughter having worked so hard, she's a 7th grader, that everything might go to pass fail, it was a little disappointing and discouraging at first. And then I thought about it and I thought, well, you know, this is an opportunity. This is actually, I think, an opportunity to help do right by a lot of other people who haven't had these opportunities. So I would just offer that as food for thought to people who might, you know, just offer it as food for thought.
And your school has gone to pass fail? Her school?
No, Salk hasn't, but I mean, I can't see people, I can't see administrators or the DOE doing anything. I mean, that's just my own personal opinion. That's not based on fact, but I think there's too many disparate variables and too many scenarios, and there's no way to make it equitable otherwise. So I've reconciled myself with that. If it doesn't go that way, then I'll be in for a surprise, but that's kind of where I'm sending my mind right now.
Got it. Okay. Thank you. Do we have any other raised hands? Josephine, did you raise your hand?
Yes, yes. It's just piggybacking on what Robert and Hector already discussed, but I'm wondering, Janine, if you've heard, or any of our CEC members that are on the call, have you heard of any talk about how the DOE plans on handling social distancing when we have classrooms? My daughter's classroom has 33 kids in the class. You know, we cannot go back to business as usual. So what plans, is the CEC taking any steps to write any resolutions about this, or are you hearing any other community boards talking about these issues in terms of staggering days, times for kids to go in, doing some online learning, anything to help keep these social distancing measures in place?
I'm going to jump in and then I'll hand it off to some CEC members who are on the call. We, as a bunch of people, put together a long list of questions, and that was on our list, and we bumped it down after grading and learning and sort of admission stuff, because at this point we were like, I hope people are planning for that, but at this point we just don't have enough information about testing and tracing to figure out, to know where we're going to be even, you know, a month or two from now. But you know, we all read the same articles. It's not looking good. So Maud or Emily or Robin, do you want to jump in?
Sure, I'm here. I don't know, is Maud, are you still there?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Okay.
Who is that, Emily?
Yeah.
Okay. Go ahead.
I mean, we have not heard anything out of the DOE. Our last update was really like about on the ground iPads and the REC centers and really like immediate stuff. So anything that I've heard has all been now till June. And then I've heard a bunch of suggestions about summer school and then a bunch of suggestions to not have summer school, but nothing beyond that.
Okay. Maud?
No, that's entirely correct. And I don't think, based on everything that I've heard from various sources in the DOE, that they're even focusing yet on what it's going to look like to go back in the classroom. I've heard from plenty of teachers that say social distancing isn't even a possibility, certainly not in elementary school in terms of classrooms. They're trying to figure out what their grading policy is going to be. They've expanded the number of essential workers that can head into their rec centers, and they're trying to figure out how to get in touch with this.
small percentage-wise, but significant number of kids that they haven't heard from while remote learning has been going on. The 84% attendance rate is pretty good when compared to some other jurisdictions, but it still leaves out, you know, many, many children who schools and teachers haven't been in touch with. So that's their focus right now. The return to the classroom isn't something that's been brought up or discussed in any of the briefings.
Great. Okay. And just looking to see if there's any more hands. Anna Rice Yaffe, you made a comment. I don't know if you want to just share that because the Q&A is not shared with everyone. Anna, are you there?
Sure. I wasn't planning on, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. I wasn't planning on commenting again. I was just thinking that, so I was at a town hall for my daughter's school yesterday, and one of the reasons that they gave for going, they're calling it credit, no credit, is because kind of what we were talking about before. I mean, there's kids who have been sick. There have kids who have parents who are ill. I think that part of why they decided to go credit, no credit was for equitable reasons. And I think, you know, in District 2, we're really lucky we have all these amazing middle schools, but we've been talking about trying to make it admissions more equitable. And I think that, you know, I don't know. I'm not an expert on this, but I think that maybe having grades fail, pass fail this year might be a step in making that more equitable.
Sounds like a good topic for a future meeting. Okay. Thank you, Anna. Do we have any more topics, comments on this agenda item? No. Okay. I want to, we have one other agenda item, which I think will be a shorter discussion, and then we will go to business session. Let me share my screen. The second topic was really the Summer Youth Employment Program. In New York City cut the $124 million program earlier this month. It's a 6-week program that provides employment to 75,000 youth between the ages of 14 to 24. That was last summer, those numbers. Nonprofits had been working for the last, since March to find innovative ways to shift summer jobs to remote work. Obviously, not every job can become a remote job, especially when you're supervising somebody who presumably doesn't have a ton of work experience. And I think not-for-profits are also concerned it won't be reimbursed for expenses they've already incurred. The program's been around since 1963 and wasn't scrapped in the 70s during the city's fiscal crisis, which I find kind of interesting. The cuts disproportionately impact underrepresented youth, including persons of color, nature residents, students involved with criminal justice program, and children in foster care who are excited to earn some money over the summer. There's lots of local organizations that participate. I shared with this committee the 2019 annual report that lists the employers by borough. Two of them are in Community Board 2 are the Door and Chinese American Planning Council, but there's the Henry Street Settlement and lots of other organizations downtown that participate in this, as well as the YMCA. I'll leave it at that. Amy, Brenna, I know you were on the call yesterday. I don't know if there's anything you want to add to this conversation. Unmute. Carter, can you unmute her? Or let's see. Can someone unmute Amy? It's not working from my screen. Okay, great.
Hi. Yeah, I was not able to be on the call, but I will tell you because we're working, you can hear me, right?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, because we are working on this. So what we heard is the reason they were canceled was not for financial reasons, because in the scheme of things, if you look at the budget, it's not that much money. It's because they just immediately said, we can't social distance for these programs. So it's not, right now, it's not, from what I hear, it's not the money that is the big stumbling block. It is, how do you create a program? And at the time they did it, they just were, I think, and what do we have to do to just close things down? So what I know that where I work and many other people are trying to promote is, how do you rethink these programs so that people get the financial support they need, this learning skills or career skills or whatever? How do you reconstruct them so that you can keep people safe? And I don't have any answers to that. Nobody has put forward any answers. I don't know if anyone's done something like this before. But that's what I understand is going on. And if anyone else has heard anything, but that's what we're operating under.
I was on the call actually, and I mean, yes.
This is Mar Fitzgerald talking.
Hi, Mar. Some of the suggestions that people were making were a virtual summer academy, or to change, this work that is usually, the providers for this work for these kids are usually nonprofits and other organizations around the city, but that they actually changed into a virtual certification program, right? Work, learn, and then at the end the kids would have a certificate. So this was one of the ideas that people were thinking of. But the loss of the program doesn't, just affect the kids. It's also the providers and the people that work at these organizations as well. So these are all things I think that should be taken into consideration.
And
can I say one other thing? Am I still unmuted?
Yeah.
You're totally right, Mar. I mean, it's not only the people who are hired for these programs, but a lot of them work at summer camps as well. So the other issue is, you can't keep all these young people, children, people in the SYEP program. They can't stay indoors for all summer, and they are going to leave the house. And if there aren't any kind of structured opportunities for them, they're going to congregate in the few parks that are open. They're going to congregate and not be staying 6 feet away, or whatever you need to do over the summer. So there's also a healthcare, mental health care, COVID-19 issues that have to be resolved, because you have to give young people a place to participate in these programs, not just the ones who were hired in the program, right? So I don't have any answers. I haven't heard any answers, but it's a much bigger issue of how young people are going to get through the summer.
Well, as a parent, I'm definitely thinking about that. I want to share my screen again. Let me get this going. Teens Take Charge has put together, hold on, share screen. Has put together a city council tracker of who supports reinstatement of this program, who's an ally, who's an opponent. Nobody's an opponent. But downtown, Councilmember Chin and Carlina Rivera are support full reinstatement. Ben Kalos, uptown, Helmut Rosenthal, and several haven't responded. So this is just give you an idea of who's supporting this. And I do think, the only thing worse than remote learning and sheltering in place at home is no school, no parks, no pools, no beaches, and sheltering in place at home. As a parent, that's sort of almost a worse, it could potentially be worse than 2 summers ago when one kid had a broken arm and one kid had a broken nose.
I think that, just getting back to what you're saying, I don't care if you close the beaches or the parks. This is what people are saying. Kids, young people have got to leave the house. And it's going to be bad for their health. It's going to be bad for their health. But the virus, and it's just, there needs to be some solution. I don't have the answers, but that's what I'm hearing.
I see one question here about training students for contact tracing, and I have no idea about that, but I've heard several different versions of that, and The most recent one I heard this morning is it's actually a highly skilled position that requires a lot of training. So I'm not sure about that. And these are only 6-week jobs, but that's probably worth digging. Keen, you have a question? Let me unmute you. Yes?
Yes. I have a comment, really.
Mm-hmm.
The crucial thing that people need is this human interaction. And I think that this summer program can provide it, even if it's online interaction. I think we have to have a summer program. Amy's absolutely right. You know, these kids got to connect with each other, and all the social service groups with any sense can figure out how to do it with some modicum of safety, but we have to talk about mental safety as well as physical safety. So yes to that. And I think the same, I wanted to make another comment on the grading issue.
Mm-hmm.
The teachers, you know, it's not just a grade, it's how the kid is actually doing. So the teachers should be able to write something about this kid is this and whatever, which should be very helpful for you know, not giving it, just think of a letter grade, but think of a comment. So I agree with the pass fail idea, but pass fail with comments. That's it.
Okay.
And just Janine, I was trying to arrange for Councilmember Kalos to join us, and seemed to be having some technical difficulties, but he might come back on for a second, in which case I'll just promote him up to a panelist.
Okay. Sounds good. So until,
Janine,
yes?
Janine, can I say something? I was
Sure.
also on that call yesterday, and I put in the link for what students that are home currently can do to advocate for the summer program. They also said that they should utilize the 311. Not many, they said that they should call in and say why they want to be out and work this summer or in some way, so that the mayor has, because he gets a list of this printout for weekly. So the kids need to ramp up advocacy work, email, write their, their assembly persons.
I would just encourage people who are using 311 to use the app on your phone or to do it from your computer. Somebody had asked me to call 311 for something else earlier today, and it was an extensive wait and via phone. So, and even the mayor's office, the number for the mayor's office now flips over to 311 as well. So if you are going to file something on 311, please use your phone or computer unless you have a lot of time. Or that's your only option. So, but thanks for sharing this, Patricia. I'm going to just go around. We're in the event that won't officially go into business session, but I will go around to committee members or other CB members from other community boards who haven't had a chance to speak yet, if they want to comment on either in general on grading or the summer youth employment program. Just raise your hand or physically raise your hand or raise it under the participant slide. Okay. Okay. Oops, I have one comment.
I think we have Councilmember Kalos on.
Yeah, we have Abby Damsky. Is that?
Yeah.
That okay.
So I think I've just promoted Councilmember. Can you hear us, Councilmember Kalos? Let me unmute you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you for having me. Janine, I think my daughter says hi. I think your presentation went into a lot of detail, and I was also surprised by the fact that SYP survived the 1970s. I think I just wanted to come in, add my voice in support, and I think the thing is, talking to Chinese Planning Council and a lot of the vendors in your district as contracts chair, folks had already figured out how are they going to do this. They already figured out how they could do the program remote. And I know, and I'm not sure if you covered it while I was on and off, but Councilmember Debbie Rose and Majority Leader Cumbo were talking about the fact that we have needs. We have a lot of needs right now. DIFTA is now delivering food. We don't have enough people to deliver food. We can do so in a way that is safe. It can be done so in a way that is contactless. And this is literally 75,000 people who could be helping out. We're going to need people to help out with contact tracing. We're going to need people to, there's going to be an entire new coronavirus economy, regardless of whether or not we come back to the new normal. So there are a lot of jobs that these kids could be filling and that we need them to fill. And ultimately the question is, we can either take these 75,000 kids and pay them and keep them out of trouble for the summer, or on June 26th, we can say, school's out, don't go to playgrounds, those are closed, don't go to parks and social, or we're gonna fine you $1,000, and don't leave your house. And the great thing about young red-blooded teenagers is that they will do exactly what they're told when they don't have something to keep them busy. So resolution and support would be incredibly meaningful, including, I see Maud on this Zoom, including from the CEC as well, if they haven't already spoken out. Thank you for letting me drop by.
And Councilmember Kalos, I should add, we also have members of the education committees from community boards 1, 3, 4, and 5 on this call. So you're reaching a lot of people. Amy Brenna, you had a question for the council member?
Yeah, thanks. I was just wondering, like I brought up before, if pools are closed, the summer camps are running. Are they thinking about this in a bigger context too, about how do we make, it's great that we can come up with ways to reinstate the SYEP program. I do think it needs to be thought of in a bigger context though, that what do we do for all the young people in the city? As always, this is going to fall on people have fewer resources than others. And I would hope that you'd think about this in the context of, you know, how do we make sure kids of all ages, all young people of all ages are getting an opportunity to, you know, not experience the summer slide, get out of the house, learn, you know, increase their social emotional skills. It's whatever it is. That's all I'm asking, is that I hope that that will be the bigger discussion.
I think your point is incredible. And I think the resolution that is passed by by your committee as well as the other community boards should make a point of the city must provide a plan for these children with the cuts. So if you're going to cut in one place, that's fine, but we still have the need that needs to be covered. And there's a lot of jurisprudence that says that the state is here to care for kids, and everything from adult ACS to the education system is a mandate. So I think that is a very good point. I don't think the city has been thinking about the costs, the cost that will come from our cuts. So if you cut here, what costs develop over there? And so SYP is great because it reduces, it keeps children engaged at a time where they might otherwise have criminal justice interventions, and criminal justice interventions are the most costly and have a long-term impact over time. So a lot of folks talk about how to fix the criminal justice system, and I tend to be a person who says, how do we focus on keeping folks out of it to begin with? So I'm just very nervous about what will happen. But yes, I do know the city has a plan.
Yeah. I'd just like to make one comment. I understand what you're saying. There's unintended consequences, but I don't feel comfortable about always bringing criminal justice as a reason to have a program like this. I think it's pigeonholing these young people. I understand what you're saying, and I've seen the data, but I would hope that we would start talking about these young people in a different way. That with opportunities, their lives can go in any direction they want, rather than assuming that some of them will end up in the criminal justice system.
Sure, I think that's a valid point. I speak from lived experience. Growing up in Giuliani, New York City, it was not possible to be a youth in a diverse group of students who didn't necessarily have a nuclear family where there was struggle, there was other situations where if no one had a stable home and you were hanging out at a park and it was after dark, cops showed up and arrested you, if you were lucky. And so I guess my own lived experience is you could be doing something that wasn't illegal, and under the Giuliani administration, you could have criminal justice consequences. So I agree with you, and I think there's a lot of research that just talks about how having youth employment will help folks long-term. It gives them job experience. It can help them along the road, as well as the summer camp and what have you. And that was the lived experience of actually the director of DOIC, the deputy director of DOICD. But I guess my own personal experience was not having access to a lot of those programs under Giuliani meant criminal justice consequences for me personally and my friends.
I totally understand what you're saying. I do.
Thank you. I want to, Tatiana Jorio, you have your hand raised. You need to you should be unmuted.
Yes, I'm unmuted. Yeah. Hi, I'm from CB3. So I understand that there are, COVID-19 jobs that need to be filled, that maybe these young people, some of them might be able to take, like helping delivery or contact tracing. But my question is, what about the other young people whose families, or maybe they themselves, are immunocompromised, have asthma, but they also depend on, this additional income, especially now with maybe their parents facing unemployment. So I guess my question is there also talks about, something that isn't just related to food delivery, that might be more frontlines work, that those specific young people might not be able to do?
Sure. The food delivery was just one example. Chinese Planning Council had created an entire education program around having the kids remote in and doing training and job training and just turning it into more of a paid internship structure. I can tell you our office has had SYEP students, and if we were lucky enough to still have the program and have an SYEP student, my office is entirely remote. We'd have them working on constituent service, responding to emails, phone calls, things like that. Community boards, all of you have community board staff. All the community board staff are working remotely. All of you could have SYEP students helping with the day-to-day business of community boards remotely. If you're on the east side of Manhattan, we're undercounted in the census, which is not good news. Forgive my attempt at humor, but we could be using these folks to do phone-based, text-based, and just calling through people to say, like, please fill out the census, because anyone who doesn't, again, like long-term consequences, it might cost a couple $1 million this year to have these SYP students, but if we don't have the census figure filled out, then we're going to lose a lot more, billions, not millions. But Tatiana, I think that's incredibly correct, and I think it's important that the resolution include both that there are social science research-backed reasons to do the SYEP that have long-term improvements in people's lives and careers longitudinally, and I'm sure that Amy can put it more eloquently than me, and then also that there needs to be a mix of coronavirus geared jobs and education-oriented paid internships, as well as remote jobs, depending on the student's household. And I think SYP goes up to 24, so it's student and young person.
Yeah. Thank you, Councilmember Kalos.
Thank you. I will let myself go if that is okay.
Thank you. Thank you for joining
Great
us.
job.
Appreciate it. Bye-bye. Okay. At this time, we'll go into business session. And obviously, anyone, we have 17 attendees, you're all welcome to stay and listen, but you would not be able to participate. Anyways, I don't know. So thank you everyone for coming. I know we actually had a lot of people, so maybe this is a way to get more parents involved. So I really appreciate it. So I shared with everyone a draft resolution on grading policy. I don't know if you have it handy. I can I can pull it up and share the screen if that is helpful. Did anyone not receive it? Raise your hand if you did not get it. Barbara, you did not get it?
I don't think so. Can't seem to locate it. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Let me. I'm going to send it right now.
Great. Thank you.
Oops, that's not it.
It was with the agenda, right?
Yeah, it was with the agenda.
Oh, it was with the agenda?
Yeah, just go.
So it's attached to this piece that I got?
Yes.
I printed it.
You did print it?
Yeah.
Okay, great. I sent it again anyways. So the first thing I want to discuss is the CB2 resolution on grading, which is, let me share the screen. Let's see. Okay. This was, I don't know if people have had a chance to take a look at it, but it basically goes through sort of high level. I'm not going to go through all the words because there's a lot, but basically the schools closed, DOE closed schools pretty abruptly on March 15th. The DOE had about a week to roll out remote learning, and we know that that's been a struggle. And it's placed a spotlight on the uneven access of our students to technology and internet, as it's difficult for teachers and students. It's difficult, particularly for the most vulnerable students. Many students with IEPs are not receiving adequate mandated services or severely abridged ones. Remote academic instruction, I should say online instead of in, is really not accommodating to many students' disabilities. Students who, there's uneven adjustments for students who are English language learners in terms of the materials. I know people without internet access are being mailed packets. I'm curious how that's working. I haven't gotten any mail in a couple weeks. So I don't know how that's working in other parts of the city. And there's already limited mental health resources. We passed a resolution last April about the dearth of school health resources. Talked about the traditional academic setting with school-based instruction, provides, grading provides a feedback mechanism. This health crisis has exacerbated the inequities. We talk about the top priority should be protecting the mental health and the academic growth of our children. DOE currently has granted each school the opportunity to do what they want. I think we heard loud and clear from parents that people want a system-wide guidance. And I do want to share that many colleges and universities, including Harvard, Stanford, Columbia, and MIT, have gone to a binary grading model, which may be different for different places. So I just sort of want to open it up for discussion. I think the first recommendation I felt more strongly writing it is that we want DOE system-wide guidance, and then the question is if we want to be more specific about one type of learning model or another. I'm going to close this out. These were some of the ranges of ideas that we put on the screen. I don't know if anyone's, I can't tell when I have the screen share if anyone is raising their hand. Does anyone want to make a comment?
There are no raised hands, Janine. Just
no raised hands. Okay. I think people are still taking this all in. I'm gonna. I'm gonna stop the share so I can see that. Okay. I don't know if, I mean, there are some people who are, yes, Keen? I'm going to unmute. Hold on, Keen. I gotta go here. Keen.
Do that?
Yeah, there you are. Thank you.
Okay. It seems to be pretty clear. I'd like some little bit of discussion here. It seems to me that pass-fail does seem to be the most equitable. I think we have to say that it's got to be equitable, but I like suggesting, or maybe even requesting, or however we do it, that teachers include a narrative report on each child, because I think, you know, grades are just numbers, but I think a little bit of qualitative understanding of the child's specifics is important. So can we say that, or should we say that?
I like saying that. You have teamwork. Yes, Barbara, I'd love to hear it.
Yeah, even though I retired a long, long time ago, this conversation brings me back to sitting in a principal's seat and hearing from parents what they would be saying. I think equitable is the most important thing, because I think parents will point to this school, that school, make comparisons, and I think the directive has to come from the DOE to make it fair for everybody. I like what Keen said about a narrative, because even if it's pass-fail, I think what you pointed out earlier about the psychological and emotional well-being of a child, maybe that could be included in the narrative as how the child is performing at this time, how they adapted to this, how they're handling the situation. And coming from a middle school, we had 4 grading periods. Are you talking about 3 grading periods here? So the end of March was the end of, was that a 3rd grading period or a?
The second.
Yeah, I think it's slightly different in most schools, but it is the end of the 2nd grading period.
Okay, well, could there be a grade for that a grade that was given as of March 13th, and then a pass or fail? Could they be like next to each other to be indicating how the student was performing, along with some kind of a narrative piece?
Yeah. And I'm just going to bring this back up because I think the concerns that we heard were from several schools that, you know, parents feel, and I'm just going to put it that, you know, the 3rd column here, year-end grading emphasis, that, you know, the whole point is you're approaching, you know, you're on track for an A, but because you still have got 3.5 more months of learning, you're going to have a 3+ or a B+ on March 13th, which, assuming you continue on an upward trajectory, you'll get to the A grade. And so the only complaint I've heard about the average through April 13th, the pass-fail for the remote learning period, option C, is that it's a problem for, you know, that it hurts the students who may have had a lower grade going into as of March 13th than they were hoping to get for the school year. Did I say that?
So let me understand, when you talk, can you hear me?
Yes.
So when you're talking pass-fail, you mean there would only be 1 grade given for that particular time, and you would not acknowledge how the child was doing prior?
Well, I guess so option C is how the child is doing prior and remote learning for the last period. And option D is pass-fail for the whole year. I do like Keen's suggestion, you know, which is, you know, I'll call it, you know, D2, which is with narrative.
Right.
Well, frankly, they could all have a narrative. Yeah.
Hey, Janine, this is Maud. For the life of me, I can't find the damn hand raise signal on the board at the moment. So if someone else has their hand raised, they should please go first. But I something.
Actually, the panelists can't raise their hands, I think. But you know what? Go ahead. I'll go after you, Maud.
Thanks, Mar. I just wanted to add a few points. One is my understanding from some folks that I've talked to that have been on the calls with the UFT, as the UFT is discussing the grading options, is an answer to something that Barbara said. The UFT is very much opposed to going pass-fail for the whole year, it throws out the grading that teachers have done and that students have
Right.
done up until March 13th. And
Yeah, I
I think
agree.
that's an important perspective. So keeping the grades up through March 13th is something that seems to have support from a lot of families as well as from the teachers in the UFT. The other thing that's worth noticing, I think, is that, in San Francisco, they decided to give all the students A's, and that report was that news article was mentioned in the ECC survey. After making that decision, attendance plummeted in the San Francisco schools. And as I've mentioned previously, we have an 84% attendance rate in New York City schools right now, which is down from the mid-90s where we are usually. And I know that the DOE, in terms of the social and emotional health of kids, teachers and principals have wanted to keep attendance as high as possible. So a grade recommendation that reduces attendance and that makes that engagement less significant is something that for me is very concerning. And that's why I've supported that no harm option where kids can raise their grades in the remote learning period, but they can't lower their grades or be penalized for grades if they, in terms of the equitable access to whether it be devices or a quiet space to work or Wi-Fi or an adult who can help you. Any of the things that make it really hard for some kids should never be something that penalizes those kids. But the motivation and engagement that comes for many kids, hundreds of thousands of kids who haven't needed access to additional devices, is important, not just in terms of their learning, but also in terms of the connection that comes with keeping the kids engaged in school. So I think that lesson that they learned in San Francisco is important to take into consideration.
Yeah. And we didn't have that option on this list. I mean, that's it. We could obviously add it, but that's not on this list. Mar, did you want to add?
Yeah, I to speak first to what Keen and Barbara were saying about the narrative. The thing about the narrative is what time period does that narrative cover, right? If it's going to cover this last grading period, March on, it would require some level of one-on-one with the kids. And can the teachers do that? So far, my school hasn't done that. She's had a 5-minute conversation alone with her teacher, with me, So I don't know that really is an opportunity to assess a child's well-being, which I think is your concern. Perhaps if that narrative were based on the beginning of the year, the first 2 grading periods, and it's a narrative, then I wouldn't have a problem with that. I do agree with pass-fail for the final marking period. And most of the teachers that I've spoken to really want to do pass-fail as well, because they don't really feel confident in assessing the kids. The other thing is, yeah, we have a great, turnout. What did Maud say, 84, 85%? But the thing is, that's just a check-in. All my kid has to do is literally go online every day and say, I'm here. And some days there's not even enough work that she has anything to turn in to actually show that she's doing work. So I just can't imagine how they can accurately assess these kids. And these are kids with resources. What about the kids in temporary housing? What about the kids with learning disabilities? What about all the kids that don't have the resources that our kids have? There's no way. There's just no way.
Can I add to that?
Akila? Oh yeah, we'll go to Akila and then Patricia. Akila, by the way, welcome. She is our new public member on the committee. She was on at the beginning, left for a PTA meeting, and is back. Very efficient PTA meeting.
Yes, I had to lead it. 1 hour, start to finish.
All right.
I wanted to add about this conversation about grading because I'm the co-PTA president of where my children go to public school. And I've had a lot of discussions with teachers and leadership at our school, the principal in particular, about this issue. And one of the things that the principal brought up as a main concern for grading occurring at this time is that the teachers don't have they don't have a real lens into each family's home. And because there's so much information that they're not getting about the students and about what their conditions are for working. I mean, even families who have means, many of them have left the city and they are in a house with like one computer and a few kids in one house because they have the means to leave the city, but where they are, they don't have the access to, the digital technology that they need. The teachers themselves voiced that they did not feel that grading right now is what they want to do or think is a good way to provide assessment for the children. And in fact, the district leadership told our principal that the goal right now is to maintain skills, not to teach any new skills, but just to maintain and reinforce skills that have already been taught this year. And that is the goal for the end of the year. And this is coming down from superintendents to principals. So I think that affects the way that we view grading. And anyway, it's just information to consider that principals and teachers are thinking along these lines.
Okay. Hi, Patricia speaking. Where my boys went to school, IS 289, like by the time March came around, their grades would have been slightly lower. They use that progressive gradient scale where the grades are lower, and then by the end of the semester, when they get towards June, they have to show mastery, so their grades would be increased. Also at PS 212, they do the same kind of thing. I'm sure there's a lot of schools in District 2 that do this kind of grading. So, I mean, would the teachers be willing to change those grades if we're gonna go to this kind of, I don't know, pass-fail model to reflect how that the kids have mastered what they're learning? I mean, that's another thing that we should consider. I just wanted to bring that point up.
My talk, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I mean, that's one of the reasons why I think the narrative is useful, because I think a teacher could say, this child was, I certainly would expect this child to have mastery of these things, and the mid-semester grade does not reflect what this child is actually able to do and will be doing. I mean, I think the teachers can say that, and that will help. Or the teacher can say whatever the teacher says, the teacher can just whatever. But at least the teacher can sort of increase or decrease, mostly increase, probably knowing the teachers, the power of this wonderful child who is coping with whatever they're coping with. So I think I fail for the last semester, last part, plus at least a few sentences from the teachers. And my grandchildren go to the same school that Akila's children do. And the narrative is very helpful, helpful to the parents and helpful to the teachers, helpful to the child. I think a narrative could be a great tool. Grades are just numbers, and narratives are much more real to each child.
Janine, you're muted.
Janine.
I wanted to know if Amy, I thought Amy had raised her hand physically, but I don't think so. I did not include on this list of options sort of the all A. I mean, everything is either, a grade is current, no change. You always have to have no change on the list of options, as well as everything's binary in some, at least binary. I pulled my children and I didn't really get any helpful feedback, but I do want to, as a board, we could support no change. We could support some sort of the, the option B. We could support sort of some combination of C or D. And I like adding a narrative where we call it C2 or D2. And leave it at that. I just want to go around and sort of get people's quick, lightning round of thoughts on that. Keen, start with you.
C would be my voice.
Keen. Amy? Sorry. Or, okay. So anyone else just wants to jump in?
Yeah, I'll go. Maud made me think about the ramifications of pass fail. Like, I hadn't thought about the influence that might have on people not taking part anymore, sort of dropping out. And
No, that was the all A example. Everybody got an A, so it was all pass. It wasn't.
Yeah,
just
I get it. Are there any other? Are we sure that pass fail is even a possibility? I mean, can the system even handle that, or would it just take the average through 313 and there would be no measure? We're not. How does the systems handle that?
Hey, Rich, can I just respond to one thing that you said about the system and pass-fail? Because it's one thing I hadn't said, but it's just relevant, is that what some of the conversations I've had with other CEC members is that there is, I think, an equity issue around the introduction of new methods. Like, one of the things that was offered on the ECC website was this mastery, non-mastery, and they put a link to a paper about what mastery, non-mastery means. And I read it. It's in English, and I read it and I understand it. But, I have the ability to do that. We have tons of non-English speaking parents in our school system who can't read up on and learn a new grading system that's different from the one that has been in place. And I think the thing that all these folks who are really smart and proposing these smart new solutions for how to deal with remote learning are forgetting the fact that we have a lot of families in our system for whom learning a new grading option is not really viable in the they're not. We have a ton of non-English speaking parents. We have families who are so impacted by this right now that I think there's a lot of good intentions behind the idea of pass-fail or mastery grading or switching this. And I think the San Francisco people probably had good intentions, but there are sometimes consequences to the good intentions that we don't foresee. And the reason that I've supported this idea of a no harm is it keeps everything very much the same. And the equity argument for that is parents know what it is, they understand it. Kids who can navigate the system remotely can continue to do that. But for kids who can't, they don't get harmed either by grades or by admissions or in any way, so that we don't introduce a whole new, because if you introduce pass-fail, is it pass-fail for that quarter? How does that factor into the average for the year? What does that mean? There's a lot of questions that would have to be answered on a system-wide level that I don't think we have answers to, and trying to develop those answers and then explain them to parents is really tough in a crisis period.
Yeah. And I think that makes sense. I just want to point out, obviously we could add any option to this list, but this list does not have the mastery or the all-A on it or a new system. And I will throw in that regardless of what happens with grades, diagnostics will be critical, particularly for kids who are already behind, or for kids, particularly in the younger grades, where they may, reading skills may have stopped in kindergarten on March 13th. And how do you assess where the kids need to be come September? Mar, I'm going to go to you.
Janine, I have a question.
Yes. Well, let me go to Mar and then we'll take your question.
Okay.
All right. The no harm solution is actually, it's a misleading term because it actually does harm some students. It harms the students that the vulnerable students we were talking about, because it makes them rely on really two sets of grades, right? They can drop the worst grade, whatever one that is, but that assumes that the school participates in averaging, which many don't. My school does not. And B, it assumes that the school has not graded low those first two grading periods. So it's really not at all equitable, and it continues to perpetuate achievement gaps that existed before. So, and exacerbate those achievement gaps. So no harm is actually not no harm.
Got it. Okay. Any other comments? Amy, did you have a? Amy? Oops, sorry.
No, Barbara was going to talk.
Oh, I'm sorry, Barbara. Go ahead.
So I had a question with the no harm. So what does that mean? At what kind of a grade does the child get at the end then? What are we talking about?
Well, first, let me answer that. First of all, I'm not going to call it no harm because depending on who you talk to, people, I'm going to just call it option A, B, C, or D because some people agree or disagree on the definition of harm. So I want to take that out of this conversation and just focus on the option. So two ways you could drop the lowest grade or the grades can only rise. So let's say I'm going to use A, B, C, and D, even though a lot of schools have 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's say you have a B on March 13th, and then everything hits, everything crashes and burns on March 14th. Your parents are sick, they lost their job, your computer doesn't work, whatever. And so you really struggle for the last 3 months of school. So that grade would get thrown out and it would just be the average of March 13th. Which would be
the B?
Yes, which would be the B. And the other scenario is if your grade is on March 13th is your grade can only go higher. So let's say you have a B and you really love remote learning or whatever the case, your parents help you or you get lots of tutors or you just have a knack for it. I mean, there are some people who may. Then your grade rises to an A, so your grade would be an A. But if you continue to perform at the B level, your grade would be a B as well. And there, so if you have there's the upside without the downside. So students who have a stable home life or adapt well to who can transition well to remote learning will benefit from that. There's no advantage to students who struggle. They don't have an advantage with that. They obviously don't have a disadvantage, but there's no advantage. And then the only tricky part, I'm going to swing the screen over, is the softer thing is the schools with sort of the year-end grading emphasis, which is and that's sort of more of a nebulous situation. So I'll leave it at that.
So this is what, if I may ask you, so we would be putting forth our recommendation, but what about the piece that we all agree upon that it should be the same from the DOE citywide?
Yeah, I think the first part of the resolution, I think there's agreement on. I'll just ask if there's any disagreement that there should be a citywide response versus individual school or individual district.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I think
I agree.
Okay.
Yes, agree.
So that is, I'm going to stop sharing that. So that is one. Then the question is, what about, the type of grading policy? I didn't get answers from everybody on that. Keen votes for C. Rich, now that we've had a little more discussion, do you have a view?
I'm really worried. Can I see? I'm just really worried about unintended consequences. Just things we're not thinking of. I'm the more I think about it, the more I'm trying to think through all the scenarios that we have. A kid who's done, tried really hard, done really well. They don't get hurt necessarily if they're just flat from this point out. I'm just worried about any other unintended consequence.
Got it.
And I'm worried that, and we're sure that this is something that I don't want to create a resolution that's just discounted because it's not feasible.
I can't, from a systems perspective, I can't fully answer that. I mean, I know, for example, PE is graded pass fail.
That's true. Good call.
I mean, there's lots of classes. PE, art, and music are all graded pass fail.
That's true.
So I'm assuming that that's an option in the computer system. I agree that new things like mastery and so forth might not, but I do, and the current report cards, not the stuff that shows up on the My Schools account, but the ones that are sent home do include a narrative on them. So in terms of requesting a narrative, I think that would be helpful. I don't know where the UFT would be on that, but where our own, we can send our own view.
Right. But the results won't, there's nothing here, the results won't negatively affect the teachers too. The teachers don't get graded in this way. I know they're evaluated sometimes on test scores, but not on this stuff, right?
I mean, but like they're also evaluated in how effectively they manage their classes, and
yeah,
I don't think that would, which is kind of out as well. I just think we can't solve every problem. Akila, do you have a vote on that, or?
Can you put it back on the screen? Because I have to just familiarize with my.
The three options, or?
Yeah,
sorry.
just the options.
Hold on, let me pull that up.
I mean, because there were two that said with narrative report, so I can't remember which one.
Those were I mean, frankly, we could add that to all of them. I don't think there's any disagreement that we want narrative reports. I think let's go with what we agree. So, so here are the options. Let me move your beautiful faces to the side. So no change is where we are now. Dropping the lowest grades, or grades can only rise. Pass fail for the remote learning period. So your grade ends up being whatever it is through March 13th. I don't know how much wiggle room there is on that. And then pass fail for the whole school year. And I actually didn't know that Hunter College, high school and elementary school had gone to pass fail until this call.
Yeah, I mean, our school is at pass fail too. And I think for the whole year, really. And I think, I would vote for that option D with a narrative, because there's just so much anxiety in the school communities now and with children and families. And it's really affecting even kids who have access to all the things. It's affecting tremendously participation and ability to really access, learning. So I would vote for D.
Yeah. And I will suggest that there's a softer way to phrase this, which is, you could call it a binary grading model, which, obviously could pass fail, or it could be something else. So Akila, you vote for D, and we may not have agreement on this. So I just want to, Mar, what was your preference?
What did I say? Oh, D, of course.
Okay. Patricia?
I was going to go with D. But I also want to stress, I was to kind of counter what, or answer what Rich was raising a concern about. I mean, the whole world is going through this globally, this pandemic. And we have to put an asterisk on this marking period, because even the colleges are going pass fail. So, there has to be like some kind of a star to emphasize that there was a big change that happened this year. And I think that has to be reflected somehow. That's why, I'm conflicted on this, but I have to choose D. Thanks.
Maud, I think you were B, but I'm not 100% sure. Just want to confirm.
She left the call and she wrote B.
Oh, okay.
In the Q&A,
Okay, thank you. Amy?
Yeah, I really listened to what Rich said. If we have to vote, I would say pass fail, but I would hope that we would request that it's standardized, DOE standardizes it across all schools, so that everyone's going through the same system. I wonder if we should also say that this needs to be reconsidered if next year this happens again, and should we request that the Department of Education work out over the summer what will happen next year? Because, we all know, we don't know what, I understand why everybody's voting the way they are, because you really don't know the unintended consequences. But I think it's up to the DOE to make an effort to, you know, with parental input and education experts, they've got 3 months to figure out what they're going to do if they have to do this again.
Okay.
Yeah, I really agree. Amy.
Yeah, me too. That would make me feel better.
Okay. I think that's good. So Barbara and Rich, and then I want to move the conversation to Barbara. Let me unmute you. You're okay, Barbara?
D.
D.
Okay.
Okay. And
Okay.
Rich?
Yeah, okay.
Jeannie, can I just say something?
Sure.
I would assume that over the next few months in the year, that the DOE will be proactive and planning something, put some plans in place for if something like this ever happened again or whatever. But what we were talking about before, I don't remember who said it, but just as the governor communicates with governors of other states within the surrounding area, it would not be a bad idea if the educational system communicated with other systems, because it's New York City is not so proud that they have all the best answers. So I think looking to other places and finding out how other communities are handling the education would be to their advantage.
Okay. Great.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to revise this resolution. I'm going to send it around to everyone. Basically, I think the majority of our committee supports some kind of binary solution, pass fail, or some other name. Amy, sorry.
Question, this may not be the right place to do it here, but should we be making some comment about how they also in the next 3 months need to put together an excellent, outstanding way to do remote learning in case they have to do this again?
Yes. I'd like to, well, let me just jump. The answer is yes. And we have a tentative meeting scheduled for March 12th with Tricia.
May.
No, I'm sorry, May 12th. May 12th. I guess I'm wishing I could go back in time. May 12th, and everything was sort of normal. May 12th, which is a Tuesday, and it'll definitely, be joint. And the goal is to focus on learning. But because we're also spending so much time learning at the moment, we haven't had time to sort of pull that together. But really, how do we go from sort of crisis point here to planning for what we want to see for next year? So I want to really flesh that out more. And so if people have ideas for that, I can share sort of a planning document if you're interested in putting some ideas. But I don't want to, this call's getting pretty long, so I want to move us along. So I will share a resolution for everyone's vote and approval, but it sounds like the majority of our votes are for option D. And then I briefly want to talk about summer youth employment. I shared with you a letter. I'd like CB2 to be able to sign on that letter. I did not share a resolution. Community Board 9 had passed one, and we've been trying to get a copy of it because I didn't want to reinvent the wheel. I wanted to start with something that had already been written. But from our conversation, if that doesn't come through in the next 24 hours, I will write one and incorporate what we said today. But it sounds like there's a lot of options. I personally would support finding a way to engage the youth, and either in some kind of job training or skills training or actual jobs. So there's a lot of jobs out there that need to get done, and a lot of organizations need help. I don't know if people have other specific thoughts on the summer youth employment program.
I
Yes,
want
Amy.
to say that I'm now going to go with D, so it's unanimous.
Oh, okay. Actually, it's not unanimous because we have 1B, but that's okay. But that's it.
But I'm happy to go with D. I mean,
okay. Thank you, Keith.
I can understand D working also.
Okay. Amy, you raised your hand.
Sorry. So I totally understand if people say they don't want to include this, but when they got rid of the youth programs, they got rid of Compass, Beacon, all those other programs for all the other young people. And I think we might be able to make the case that this falls under education, because they are learning new skills. They are they're preventing summer slide. They are doing all those other things. If other people feel that this is the place to do it, that it should be a comprehensive, I think, look. But I understand if you don't want to, and other people don't want to go down that way. I'm just going to bring it up as a suggestion.
I think it's important. I just haven't done enough digging because some of the Compass and Beacon programs are essentially classes where you convene at a school and aren't remote options, unless I'm missing something.
Yeah, that's true. But it goes back to, but it does go back to that you got to figure out ways, even if you're not doing remotely, for younger people to, okay, for some of the kids are old enough, you could do them remotely. I know some of the programs we used to do at University Settlement, at the door and things like that. But for other children, I really do think they need to start thinking through about how they get these kids out of the house. And, do you do, people with last names that start with M get to use the beach on Thursday? I don't know. Like, I'm not an expert on that. But I understand if you don't want to address that here because it is another big issue.
I think we should address that, but I'm sort of inclined not to on this. And Rich, I don't know, that's sort of something like we might want to take up in the Parks Committee as well. But Rich just went to go get some cereal in his friend's backdrop. So Akila?
No, I'm actually pointing at Mar because she has her hand.
Oh, I'm sorry. How can you're all within like 4 inches of each other. Yes, Mar.
Yes, Rich is at Jerry's house, actually. What was I going to say? Oh, yeah. Could we include something? Somebody at some point said, what about the kids who are asthmatic or immunocompromised that maybe wouldn't benefit so much from doing
Who can't be delivering meals.
Right, can't be delivering meals or close to anybody for any reason right now.
I think we can include a laundry list of some of the things we heard of on that call that you mentioned, like the skills training, as well as I'll call more the manual labor.
Right, a certification. Like it would be great if kids could actually, end up with something tangible that would lead to future work. Rather than just having a job and a little bit of money, actually that might be a better benefit to them because, they're set up for these, the jobs in this new world if they can get some sort of certification for some sort of computer or virtual based work.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. I think that's a great idea. I'm hopeful that this already written reso comes our way, or I will draft something that incorporates these comments. Any last comments? Thank you, everyone, for joining. We had this unusual time because of Ramadan, so I think on May 12th, we will be at 6:30. That is a Tuesday, thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Good
guys.
night. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Stay safe. Stay safe.
Be safe. Yes.